I give homework to my clients all the time, and I say, here's the challenge. You can accept, you can deny, or you can negotiate with me. And then tell me if you are going to accept or negotiate, how am I going to hold you accountable to that? So if you don't have an accountability partner when you're growing and coaching, you're going to forget it 6 months from now.
Hi, I'm Nick Warner. As a dad, a lucky husband, and as a business coach, I value people and relationships above all else. But next is winning, sustainability, and healthy culture. I've been a business owner for 25 years and served for decades as a special advisor to business and government leaders at all levels. Let's just say I've seen some stuff. My passion and my expertise are helping motivated professionals and businesses find the highest level confluence of what they want in life and business. This is what it feels like to be together at the top. Before we begin, I'd like to thank my sponsors, Scholes Brick and Rogaski, OM Incorporated, Three Bridges Consulting, and Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips Travel. Also, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show. Teri Dahlbeck is a great American classic. She's one of the preeminent business coaches in the US and internationally. Teri's the co-founder of Simplified Coach, Inc., a leading provider of neuroscience-based leadership and communication coaching. Teri coaches CEOs, VPs, directors, and high-potential leaders, mostly in tech, biotech, consumer, and highly funded startups. But get this, Teri's also a performer and lead singer in a band. I can't wait to talk to Teri about her two careers and how she wraps it all into one exciting life. She says this interview is going to be fun, so expect me to lose control and follow Teri wherever she goes. Teri Dahlbeck, where are you? And say hello to the people of Together at the Top.
Great intro. Where am I? I am in Northern California. Do you want me to give you a specific city name?
I want you to give me whatever you want to give me.
All right. Right now, I'm in Saratoga, but I bounce between Saratoga, Grass Valley, and Truckee, mostly.
All in Northern California.
And around the world, thanks to Zoom.
Oh, we're going to get to that. You can count on it. So let's start at 30,000 feet and work our way to ground level. We have so much to cover, and I'm so appreciative of you taking time to do this. If I sound giddy, it's because I am. So here we go.
Likewise.
Thanks so much. Let's start with your personal life impacting your professional life. I'm going to just start with a quote from a newspaper article about you. A 2011 Mercury News article titled, like I said, From CEO to Pop Singer, wrote, quote, Teri Dahlbeck's father always wanted her to become a CEO. The dutiful daughter had done everything right. After a stellar academic career capped by an MBA, she was appointed vice president of marketing at a high-tech firm. But Dahlbeck secretly yearned to be behind a microphone instead of a computer, end quote. How does that all come to be?
Well, it's funny because when my first manager introduced me once to the stage because he wanted me to give a speech at work, this was at Apple, and he said, I just want to preface everybody to say Teri has stage fright. She's afraid somebody's going to take the microphone out of her hand. So we might have to interrupt. Meaning I was always a goofball. When I was in elementary school, I couldn't wait to write, star, sing, and direct and cast plays. There were a lot of hams in my family, and I didn't realize there was also this, fiduciary responsibility called, you're going to have a mortgage someday. So, my father desperately tried to get one of the kids to follow him. He was a senior vice president of engineering for a large construction firm. And before that, he managed mission control, and we were sort of space babies. So it was super exciting childhood. And he was really hoping somebody would be in the business side. And it looked like that would be me up front. So I did like business, but I originally wanted to either be an actor performer or a kindergarten teacher because I absolutely loved working with kids. And I used to do that after school all the time and help kids who had trouble reading and special needs. And I was not trained, but I sure had a lot of compassion and thought it was fun. And I'll fast forward and say, and today I'm an entertainer. And basically as an executive coach, I sometimes feel like in a non-condescending way, use your words. Let's share in the conversation with some executives and, some of these crazy team meetings.
Yeah, fair enough. What is it your father saw in you or your family saw in you where you were tapped as like the one, I think you said? And what age was that when they realized and you started to realize you had the aptitude and you were going to get in the game on the business side?
Well, they used to let me out of elementary school to write all these plays and such because I had good grades, unlike my older two brothers, when I got to the school, they're like, oh God, here comes another one of these kids. My brothers were a blast. They were fun and they were ditching school all the time and surfing and all that. And I had this responsibility, I think, value of if somebody gives me an assignment or something, I'm supposed to do it. And so I did it, but then I was also very selfish and wanted to goof off. So I figured out how to do both. It's, to me, work-life balance and kid-life balance is extraordinarily important. And when I became a parent, I made sure that, my son wasn't overscheduled. I really do believe that the future of education is going to change in the world in the next 30 years I find seeing what my kid went through, it's so structured, and when I was a kid, it was 3 flies up out in the street and come home when the street lights turn on. And I think we swung from one, side of the pendulum to the other. And I think a lot of us parents maybe became helicopter parents because we wanted what was best for a kid. So I don't think there was anything malintended here, but I really do believe in letting a kid, become who they are, but also guide them. So that was what my dad was doing is he said, I think you'll thank me someday when I'm telling you your ability is somebody, you're organized, you're bossy. I've never seen anybody negotiate like you. We have a lot of funny stories in that space, but, it was nice to have a parent who believed in me too and said, do your other stuff. And I'll just add, Nick, that we can get to the band stuff. I'm in a bunch of bands and have been untrained, but when I fully accelerated in one of my companies, which is code for, got money that at the time I was ridiculous in my head. Like, how did I didn't feel like I earned it, which we can get into imposter syndrome as well, but I did nothing wrong or illegal. But sometimes, certainly in tech and other companies, you can be acquired and you get a lot of money. And I really had to pull back and had a long conversation with my dad and said, hey man, I really just want to go do that entertaining thing. And he said, you go get him, Peggy Lee. And he died 2 weeks later, which was really nice because a lot of us don't get that sort of acknowledgement from a parent before they, transition or what we wanted to hear. Whether I heard it from him or not, and he hadn't said it, I, in my mind, would have said, I believe my parents would have wanted that for me, and I'm going to go do it. And that's when I joined the band, but then the phone rang and all the people started asking me for help again on the business side.
It's good to be wanted, I guess.
Yeah.
In an Empowering Women Through Technology article on whytie.com, Teri was asked who's the most influential person in her life. Her answer was, quote, easy. My son's been the most influential, and he's taught me lessons that apply to the true meaning of value of life and how short and fragile it is. Talk to us about that role of parenthood. You mentioned some of that. Overscheduling is really of interest to me, but talk about the role of parenthood in your family unit in total and your success up to this day.
Well, I think our kids teach us so much. They're a fabulous teacher. And I always like to say, if you want to find the best teachers in your own inner peace, go to father, mother, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, boss, child, because somebody in there will trigger you. And they will also not only trigger you against what you think is wrong and they should do it differently, but they also trigger you into like a sort of love and compassion that you've never known before. And, brings up a lot of feelings of who do I want to be on this planet? We're here for just like a flash, right? We're here for when you look at, we've been around we have ancestors that walked this planet 3 million years ago, and here we are. And in the last 1,000 years, look at what's come about, with internet and air travel and medicine. Oh my gosh, just, the medicine industry is insane. We're not using leeches anymore, thank goodness. That when I finally had my son, I was sort of wrestling with being an executive myself before I actually became an executive coach. And I would say executive, like meaning just a leader. It doesn't mean that I had any fancy title, or it doesn't matter to anybody if you have it. It's just everybody's an executive of their own life. That I wanted to prioritize. But this was in the day when a woman had a baby, you got 4 weeks off and there were no nursing rooms. And I had to figure this out for myself, where I created nursing rooms out of closets and what I was willing to do for this kiddo and what I could see in him. I didn't want to push him into things he didn't want to do. I remember having a conversation with him his freshman year of high school saying, hey, I don't want to be the parent when you're older, because by the way, I coach these people who, says, you got to take all AP classes. And I take dumbbell math. I don't care. This is your journey. I'm going to support you, but I'm also going to guide you. So I'm guiding you to say, most people go to college. I think you should, consider that. And I actually said, the one gift you're getting from your dad and I is a college education. We're going to pay for that, which most people don't get. And I'm willing, at your age, not having a fully developed brain, because the kids' brains mature somewhere between 24 and 27, say, would you like just the cash of a 4-year degree, or would you really want to go? So that becomes your decision. I don't want to rob your college choices and your decisions. So I wanted a well-balanced family, a well-balanced life. And what my kid taught me was so much about what kind of a leader I wanted to be myself for him, as well as for the rest of my family, my husband and my all my relatives and friends. And they trigger you, good and bad. And that's a good thing.
Say a little bit more about the triggers.
Well, I have tools around those triggers. So for example, if I'm triggered, I had a really unique childhood. Like I did not have a cherry lane or what they would say wonderful childhood. I had a father who was, for lack of a better word, a workaholic, right? I mean, he was so dedicated to his career. And his comment was, look, and when I grew up, the man brings home the bacon and the woman takes care of the kids. But my mother was unfortunately bipolar, not even diagnosed until months ago. And she just passed away at 90. It was the hospice team that said, whoa, this one's tough. She was a raging alcoholic and extremely mean. And all the kids during the divorce when I was very young went to live with my father and his new wife, who's wonderful. But I got stuck on the West Coast with, as I kiddingly used to say, Cruella. And it was really, really hard for me to figure out my life and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to have balance. And so what I found was around 32 years of age myself, I started feeling all these really weird things like panic and anxiety and imposter and I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm an idiot. Who would hire me? And all this. And then I started replaying my childhood of hearing somebody tell me a lot of that stuff or me just self-imposing it. And so true to myself, no one's going to solve this but me. So I hired a therapist and I saw them for years. And what the best part for me of the therapist was to be told that, yeah, you had a crazy childhood. I'm like, is it me? I just needed somebody who had a degree from somewhere that said, no, it's not you. You're not. Like, I need a couple well-regarded people to tell me, no, it's not. That was not a normal childhood. And that was really rough. Now, I would call myself the president of the Victim Association of Northern California, meaning go ahead, bring up your crappy childhood story. I bet I could beat you. And let me tell you, poor me, why that poor little girl shouldn't have had to go through all the crap that I could have 1,001 of those. And I was living in that. And what happened for me, Nick, was I had this transition where I know we really haven't talked about my career and then transitioning over to an executive coach. But once I became a full-time executive coach about 10 years into it, I was just suffering from the number of emails and handwritten letters clients were telling me, like, you have helped me so much, both in business and in my personal life, that like you have literally been critical to me guiding my life in a whole new way. And I'm just so appreciative. And when I would read that, you would think I would be flattered or excited, but instead I felt deeper and deeper. And I can't even unpack myself. I got to figure this out. And why am I so abusive on myself and so always belittling? So I, went to all kinds of workshops and classes and met gurus, and I still didn't find it. And then I finally did find some people that then I went, the problem with this is these tools that I'm learning are not translatable, in my opinion, to business people. It was too squishy or fluffy or, hippie or whatever it was. I'm like, how do I harden these up to a PowerPoint slide, and say, here's some tools that can help you. And not only did I help author these tools, but I also wrote hundreds of one-pager tools and grounding statements for helping myself. Like when I start spinning into I don't deserve this money, or what am I doing coaching CEOs of billion-dollar companies? I didn't go to Harvard. I went to Cal Poly, which, by the way, is a great school. Go San Luis Obispo. But, I find something to make myself feel bad about myself, regardless of what it was. And by the way, I coach a lot of Ivy League leaders who have the same story I had. So it had nothing to, we just keep belittling ourselves. So I became very aware of those triggers, Nick, and I wanted to figure out how to unpack them myself to navigate through waters and then come out of it with sort of a motto. And I'm one of these people that's been a real holdout to not get a tattoo. Not that I have anything against them. I'm dying to get them, but I just sort of like, nope. But if I did, only 2 phrases have come to mind of what I would really want to get. And one of them is merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And it's a dream in my head, that I'm creating. And who's to say that actually when I am dreaming and asleep, isn't that the reality? And what I'm in right now is not. So I just like to question everything that's coming. But the one that really hits home for me is let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. And why I mean that is people have noted that I'm a very good negotiator. Let's put it that way. I will look like, a sheep, but there's a wolf in that clothing. And I love that. And I'm not doing anything illegal or anything. I love a good negotiation. I'm very competitive, like whatever the sport is I'm in, even if I can't do it, I'll try. And if I come into a negotiation where I just start being cruel or mean or just like belittling the other side as a strategy, I believe for me, this is my perception, that's me having hate that's living in me, probably from mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, friend, boss, whatever, even child, that I'm projecting on these other people. And then they go home and they're not present with their spouse or partner or kids or whomever is important in their life or colleagues. And I don't want to be that guy. So there's so much in my head that I need to unpack still that comes up daily. But now I have tools and I want to share the tools as well, is to make me a better person inside my head. This is my dream on this planet, not theirs. And I'm the one who cast that person, that mother as Cruella. I'm the one who casts colleagues as whomever. So when I take that ownership, like, what if I don't cast them as that? How would it land? What if, I'll tell you something very personal, Nick. Before my mother, I didn't talk to my mother for a couple of decades. She was so toxic, I couldn't be around her. And finally, when I figured these tools out and I got them all together and I was like, okay, well, now you know what you need to do, Teri, is go meet the dragon that, you created in your head. So I thought to myself, what do I want from her? I'm going to go meet her in a public restaurant because I don't even know how I'm going to behave or her. I don't need her to tell her she loves me. I love me. Even when my husband tells me he loves me, I'm the one that opens the gate to let that in, that I have decided he loves me. If he tells me tomorrow, I don't love you, or I have a wife and 6 kids in another part of town and I'm leaving you, it's all on me to not go, how dare you? It's more of, okay, I might need to go live in some grieving for a little bit, which I call DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work. In it for a while. But when I come back, what I want to be is intelligent, and I want to figure out how, if this isn't working for you, honey, as my husband, what do I need? So I don't need my mother to give me an apology, what have you. What I need, if I had anything, is that she was a church lady at the end of her life, and she was on Facebook all the time. And I said, Mom, if I'm ever in a public venue, how do you feel about me actually saying publicly that you tried to kill me? And she said, don't be ridiculous, Teri. That never happened. And on an inhale, I was ready to come, the defensive side of me. Are you kidding me? We have witness, and that was half of the battle. How about the emotional, physical, mental, sexual, whatever trauma I was going, that's where I wanted to go. But thank God those tools came back in sub 1 second. And what I realized is that didn't happen in her dream and her story. And so I'm not going to argue her dream or her story. And by the way, I don't believe she was trying to kill me. I think I was completely an innocent bystander, and I was taking it personally. I was safe for her to be cruel to because I was her child at home. She could come home and take all of her hate and anger and put it out on me. So she was really killing herself. And now I'm killing me by replaying those memories and living in that victimhood. So I just said to her, you're right, Mom. And she looked at me because she was ready for the argument. She goes, man, I don't know you have changed, Teri. You have and I don't even know why I say stuff like that. Sometimes I'm just really direct to you. And sure, if it's going to help somebody for you to say that I tried to kill you, go ahead. I'm more interested in you having a good life. And, so anyways, this beast that I was looking at shapeshifted in seconds because I got triggered. I went to my grounding statements. I went to my tools of how I want to live my life. This isn't anybody else's grounding tools. I hold up a little hors d'oeuvre tray on Zoom calls with my clients and say, everything we're going to talk about today is like an appetizer tray of tools and grounding statements. You decide if you want these. You take these over the finish line. This is how I use a hammer. This is how I use a saw. You decide if you're going to use it or not. And I will give you examples of how people have used it. And if that helps you, great. So you can own it. You can own the victory in it, and you can own oh, that didn't work. I need more help. So that's what I mean by triggers.
Yeah, and I appreciate your humility and all this. If people wouldn't know this unless I told them, but you're a mentor of mine, and I'll just quickly tell a story. When I was thinking about leaving lobbying, I was a lobbyist for 30 years in the state of California. When I was thinking about leaving, I reached out to Teri through a friend. As you know, I got a call with you. I think it might have gone 17 minutes. And when the call was over, I literally was at my desk going like, stupid. Why did I call her? I'm not ready. It was so silly of me to do that. And we talked again, I think about 6 months ago, and I went about an hour and 15 minutes, and I had a lot more substance, and you were really, really helpful to me. And I have to tell you, one of the things, this notion of Teri Dahlbeck with imposter syndrome, or I didn't know about these issues that are formative to you, just like a president to me, like, I don't want to pick on one person, but like, I didn't inhale. Like, that's not compelling to me. I would like a leader with some life experience, with some grit, who's been through some things, who's made some mistakes, right? Who's doubted themselves. If you're holding yourself up as perfect, one thing I know is you're probably not. And so I love, as we get into this next part of the discussion about the coaching industry and about like nuts and bolts, that I really want to hear, and we will hear about your singing career as well, because this notion of you having two careers is super fascinating to me. But I like the fact, for myself and for our listeners also, you ain't perfect. Your background's not perfect. There's a lot of grit and grind to you, right? And so when people are telling you their problems, hopefully you're not like, oh, that's not me. I don't have those issues with people, or I had a perfect childhood. I like that in a business coach or a leader, and your willingness to say, and I was going to come back and ask you about imposter syndrome, but you expanded on it, and I appreciate that. We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. The law firm of Scholes, Brick & Rogaski and partner Michael Rogaski are at the top of my list of go-to teammates. I have worked with their office for more than a decade on legal matters involving labor and human resource issues, contracts, savvy strategies to collect from that occasional naughty client, wills and trusts for my family, and even buying and selling a business. It's exactly true what their slogan says: big firm result, small firm service. Contact partner Michael Rogaski by visiting sbrlawsd.com. OM Incorporated is my go-to agency for digital marketing. I work with partners Andrew Thorne and Jennifer Wiles every day to market my business coaching practice. I get about half my business from the aggressive digital marketing strategy they design and run. OM developed nickwarnerconsulting.com and integrated a targeted digital marketing plan that matches me to high-quality clients. I'm also going to work with them on my 2023 rebrand campaign. Contact them at www.om-incorporated.com. One last question before we leave this section, Teri, is, do you find that being a business coach makes you a better person, or trying to be a better person? And I'll just preface it by saying, I don't want to be a phony. I have a lot of clients. I'm not as robust, especially internationally, as you are, or maybe even at the high CEO levels of the biggest companies on the planet as you are. But I'm holding myself to account. No joke. I'm pushing myself. I'm not letting perfect be the enemy of the good. Meaning I'm getting started on projects before I'm 100% clear on where it goes or what I'm doing. I'm credible. I'm good enough. I'm going to start this. I say sorry. I sometimes have to check, instincts, like it might be temper or pushback type thing. Do you find that being a coach is making you a better human, or you strive to be, or are you done?
Yeah, I only wish. I wish I had a pill I could take and go, gee, nothing hurts anymore, and I'm never going to have any more stress, and I'm the perfect person. That's the bummer about being a human being, is it's never going to end until it does, right? So, but having the tools to get through whatever I need. I have reframed a lot of things, Nick. So like one of my really bad imposter syndromes I had was when I had all these clients that were, fancy and according to others, let's say, and And I was like, who am I? How am I? Who am I to tell this? I'm not a marriage family therapist and I'm giving a marriage advice. And I only put it on that appetizer tray to say, I'm not trained. This is just something in my experience and having been an executive coach for 2 decades that others have said. So it's just an idea that you can consider to decide to own or not. So when I walk into meetings, I walk in going, I have no idea if I'm going to be able to help this person. Honestly, and I will tell them that. I honestly don't know, but I'm going to try so hard because I'm very competitive that if you give me a throwdown of what it is you want as your goals, I'm going to hit them. But where I'm different is I'm not a shrinking violet. I'm not the person that says there's you at work and then there's you at home. There's no way. There's you as a child. There's you as your future. There's you, what you want to get out of your career, which by the way, could change tomorrow. So let's just stay open and accepting of whatever it is and see where we go. But I will hold the space accountable for the goals that you say, but I might add some in there and say, how about this one? How about that one? And I don't know if I'm the right coach for you. I have said that to clients halfway through, like, we've had this conversation 3 times on the same topic and I've given you the tools and you come back and you bring up the same thing as though we never had it. So I'm not sure I have any more tools for you to help you. And just being that vulnerable with the client went, it's not you, it's me. I don't want to read your tools. I want to stay here in my bad behavior or what have. So just being honest, I tend to not apologize a lot because I find that is taking power away from me. What I do say is, I'm doing my best here. And if I'm not the right guy for the job, I need to go and I'll fire myself. Don't worry. And if I do something that really is a mistake, of course, I'm going to apologize. Oh my gosh. But mistake isn't what I focus on. Recovery is everything. What am I doing to get out of that mistake that makes my values and my goals feel honored? That I'm responsible. I did what I did. That other person's going to continue to live in victimhood or try to sue me or whatever it is. That's their business.
Let's talk about coaching industry from 30,000 feet. In an October 2021 article in joshbersin.com, The Explosive Growth of Coaching, one of the biggest trends in business, Josh reports, quote, what you're going to see is that well-being programs, coaching, development, and leadership coaching are all connected together. In fact, the one silver lining of the pandemic is that it taught us all a big lesson. If you don't focus on the whole person at work, all these individual HR programs don't add up. He goes on to say, today, companies want to provide an end-to-end healthy experience for employees. What I wanted to ask you in your broad experience is the business coaching on upswing or on the decline? And what are you seeing in the market trends as it relates to the coaching industry?
It's definitely on the upswing because it's more acceptable. Back in the 90s, there were hardly any executive coaches. There were industrial psychologists. There were organizational development consultants. And it's not that it was a stigma, but it was pretty much not nearly as accepted or heard of. And as people are coming, they're finding out their parent had a coach, for example, or their friend or their uncle or aunt. So it's becoming more acceptable as a thing. But coaching is so hard to put a box around because there's so many different kinds of coaches. I was the president of the Silicon Valley Coach Federation, which was a division of ICF, the International Coach Federation. And when I was there, I was meeting coaches who were first-time parent coaches, like they coach people who just became a parent, or bereavement coaches, or executive coaches. I want to be a CEO or a C-level or a whatever, or a lawyer coach. I understand the law and the field of lawyering, and I want to make sure I can help people with partnering that with meditation. So I was meeting so it's very unstructured, and that's the good and the bad of it. Because you have to find a coach that you connect with in a chemistry way. We call it chemistry fit meetings when we first meet. Like, am I getting something out of this? So I think it's on the upswing. And I think what you have to do is find, is this coach for me? But having an education by interviewing a few different coaches, and I'm different. I'm a coach and a consultant, and I'll be the first one to tell you that. Like, if you go through the ICF training, which I always encourage, and getting a certification, you will learn to ask questions and that the client holds the power. I 100% back that. I also say, hey, I'm taking my coaching hat off right now, and I'm going to tell you, someone who's been in biotech or tech for 15, 20 years, probably saying this and this and this might be something you want. And I used to run Apple's corporate briefing center. So I worked and coached a lot of people on public speaking. And, if I said to a client, how do you want to be perceived on the stage? And they say, oh, I want to be seen as this and this and this. And I happen to know from my experience that that may or may not work, but I'm giving it 70% odds it won't work. I'm going to say, hey, who am I to say? I think you could crush it out there. We need change. We need people who are going to do things differently. And let me tell you likely what that audience is expecting. And then we can help you write your speech in a way that says, hey, you might be expecting this, which would then give you permission from them to lean into who you really are. So there's lots of different kinds of coaches. People, jump the field and say things they shouldn't all the time in coaching. I hear other stories and coaching horror stories of what people said. This is what you need to do. I would never say that. I put it on the appetizer tray and say, here's what different people have done. Here's things I've written. By the way, a grounding statement could come from the cashier at the grocery store when you're there. I had a grounding statement come to me when I was running through a bad part at a very, metropolitan city late at night, and someone jumped in front of me in a bad neighborhood. I shouldn't have been there, but I didn't care because I needed exercise. I was running between two meetings and I chose to do it. And I knew that was part of the odds. And he said, hey, tried to stop me and block me and said, what's your rush, Blondie? To which I instantly went, good one. Like, I am rushing to this dinner meeting with a client that I don't even really like. I've been threatening to fire them. You are really helping me. This guy was just like, and I kept walking and everything was great. Like, I didn't go, oh my God, he's going to shoot me or what. I take everybody's comments and statements, including yours, Nick. You are a very erudite man who's been around the block in a lot of different ways. And I think you are, as I told you in the beginning, a phenomenal addition to the coaching industry. And we will always be learning as coaches. And most of us coaches are collaborative and like helping each other. I definitely have met people that are not, that are interested in throwing me and others under the bus. That's okay. That's their business. That's not mine. I choose to, if that's not where I'm belonging, then I don't want to be there anyways. But we just have to learn and find our own mentors. And then we have to find coaches who we feel we can learn from. But I will caveat your clients or your listeners, if they are going to hire a coach, to challenge themselves and say, am I hiring somebody who's making me feel good? Because a lot of people hire therapists where they just talk and the therapist nods, they tell me, and they don't really offer any, sort of reflection of what they're seeing or what they might want to consider. Is if you're just hiring somebody to be a yes man to you, are you sure you want that? Because, to me, coaching is a space that feels extremely confidential, extremely safe, and you can be very vulnerable and you're willing to listen to some hypotheses of what might happen next in your career that you could do both personally and professionally and be open to it, right? You should feel some discomfort. I give homework to my clients all the time and I say, here's the challenge. You can accept, you can deny, or you can negotiate with me. And then tell me if you are going to accept or negotiate, how am I going to hold you accountable to that? So if you don't have an accountability partner when you're growing and coaching, you're going to forget it 6 months from now. I meet with all my clients mostly that I can 6 months after we're all done. I give them a 30-minute free session and they call me Principal Teri, or they call me, they have all kinds of crazy names for me where they laugh. And I'm like, how about this? You're working like, oh, you're right. People have coined me as the asshole and Asperger's coach in Silicon Valley, meaning there are so many wonderful people who are showing up in a way that other people aren't accustomed to their style or don't know how to deal with them. So they've had other coaches who showed up to try to help them, who've been their own self. I shapeshift when I get to one of my clients who's, not doing well because they're angry or whatever. I become angry. I mirror them. And it's happened multiple times where I've come in and swearing like a sailor and insulting my client. I don't want to be, no coaching ever school will tell you to do that. This is me. This is how I'm so desperate to connect with this person out of love and kindness. And he's blowing off all the other coaches, or she's just diminishing them as, woo-woo people who are hippies. That I don't want that. I want them to know that I can take you in a fight. Let's see, And so we have really good banterings, and then they end up hiring me. And then shockingly, they keep me on for life, or companies go, hey, we'd like you to work with them once a quarter for an hour and a half, just to make sure all these tools. I get tons of letters from companies and spouses and kids saying, whatever you did, please keep it going because they're owning it. And that makes me feel purpose. Why the heck am I on this planet is to do what I think is the right thing for me. I'm not a teacher. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I'm going to try really hard to facilitate you to get to the life that you think you want today, which guess what? Tomorrow might be different or next year might be different. We don't know.
When you're angry with your client, are you really angry or are you faux angry? Are you playing a role angry?
Totally a role in service of connect. I'm in love mode. Are you kidding? I just want to hug them and love them all up. And I'm seeing that, and give you this happened twice. One was a very large multi-billion-dollar company and one was not. And someone was a real jerk to the people under them, but man, could close business deals. Like, in other words, really good outbound, but then just treated everybody in-house very poorly. And I had to bend my style, I call it. And he's like, all right, I'll work with this one. Wouldn't even look at me in the eye, showed up an hour late to our first session, all the typical, haven't seen this before. And I just got relentless with them, and they felt safe that someone here could hold the space. It would be confidential. I've heard many people say, I will not see a therapist ever because that means I'm broken. Like, I'm not a therapist. Don't want to be one. Don't play one on TV. I'm not a marriage and family therapist, but now I'm on 4 or 5 marriages that have come back together after they've seen a therapist, a marriage and family therapist, because to me, a marriage is all about leadership and communication. And that's the coach I am with neuroscience underpinning. So I'm going to tell you science, but you get to decide if any of this, you have to be able to communicate with your partners and your kids and your family. Yeah. So where I'm going with all this is to say, when I'm with this one person, and it's happened twice, is session 4 or 5, both of them broke down in the ugly cry. And both of them said, I really just want to open an orphanage in another country. I want to give back. So all this softness and love that they had inside, because of how their parents said you're nobody unless you're this, and they believed it and they bought into it. Honest to God, Nick, the hardest thing for me to do is keep staying authentic with myself and not feeling like, oh, I have to drive this kind of car or I have to live in this kind of house or people aren't going to like. And it's me saying they're not going to like me. They're not saying they're not going to. I know this is all in my crazy head of stories that I bought into in my past, and here they come again. So, I just believe in faking it, if you will. And I 100% do not suggest this to any other coach or school. And they will all tell you I'm crazy for doing it. This is my journey. And I love being the guy that helps the spouse and the colleagues feel better at work because they're no longer angry and using them to get their pain out. They can use it in our session.
Yeah, we're 2 coaches, and us always agreeing won't be great theater for other people listening to our podcast, but I really agree with you. And early on, I got some mentoring. I still get mentoring from a coach, a woman who's a mentor of mine, and alongside of you, really a mentor of mine for sure. And one of the things she told me is that she exists just in the 4 walls of the screen during the session, and she counseled me not to, I'll use the word invest. I'm not sure she said invest, but that's how I took it. That ties one hand behind my back, Teri. I'm a caring soul. And so I went back to her and said, I'm struggling with that. And she said a version of what you said. She said, I also said, take my advice where it makes sense, kick it out where it doesn't. And she used the phrase style with a taste, or you said negotiate. So I've done that. So they respect my time. I respect theirs, but it's not at all uncommon for somebody to call me on the side or for me to send an article or to check in on how something's going. The confidentiality part is really impactful as a coach. And I'm leading with that. And you're talking about it as a central theme. And I've learned that in my years of coaching, in a couple of years of coaching now, because people don't want to feel broken. I'll also at times amend a calendar invite, not to say coaching, but to say consulting, because people don't want to be preached at. So I try to watch both my posture and my verbiage at times. And then you turn me on to this. It's not an axiom. It's really just, I guess it's a switch that you flip. And you mentioned it earlier, am I a coach or a consultant? And when you and I have met and you've been mentoring me, you've pointed out at that point, you're a consultant, not a coach. And I think I'm okay with that. And I heard you say the same thing. I take some heart in that. I like to be a lot like you, quite frankly. There are times when I am saying, let me take my coach's hat off, is a phrase you use. And let me tell you what I've seen before, because I've seen a lot. And so I'm actually comfortably going back and forth. And I think my proof is in the pudding, in that I don't, and I'm curious how you provide the service. I won't allow for any ongoing retainer. It's all session by session. I only want you with me if I'm providing value. And one way to do that is you don't book another session if you either need to work on it and need time to implement, or if we're not a good fit. or you're not providing, I'm not providing value anymore. So I think that helps as well, the service delivery portion of it. I'm curious how you provide your service. And then I really want to get into your second career. We need 2 hours. I guarantee you I'm going to get from people, I needed more time with Teri, but she don't have it.
Okay. So I tell my clients that when we're working together, we're friends for life. And I will always be around unless I fire you as a client for whatever reason, and vice versa. That I'm always thinking about you. I'm doing my hike somewhere and I'm like, I should connect these two people up or whatever. And I've only had 2 people in 20 years abuse the texting me. And I let them know and they stopped. So I'm like, that was an out of bounds text message at that hour for what it was. I'm not going to be that guy. So just so you know, but there's no pain here. I'm looking for a pattern. If you can't learn this after this time and you do it 2 more times, then that would. I have flown to an event that I had a CEO launching at. And because I knew him so well, I just thought, God, I would for myself like to be at this event when this thing unveils, because, just in case anything goes wrong, he knows he can trust me to like be the consultant and run interference or whatever, as well as like be a shoulder to cry on if that's what he needed. Out of my own pocket, I flew to another city, booked my hotel, and the CEO, I said, he just fell apart when he saw me. And I said, I can't believe this is who you are. And I said, well, I don't do this for everyone. I'm doing this because I know you really well. And I know how important this was to you. It's life changing. So I'm doing it for me, not for you. This brings me joy. And I also see an opportunity that you're missing here to revel in it. You're so worried about everything going wrong. Give me a word. Give me a word of what you're feeling right now. I'm going to walk you through this thing physically. There was an event, walk around. I want you to just take it in. And when he was done, I said, I don't want to lose this now. What is one word that describes how hard you've worked? And here's the culmination. He said, the word is euphoria. So we have this code word between us where your next company, it's going to be euphoria or what have you. So yes, I think my business partner doesn't do this. She doesn't take calls outside of sessions. And to answer your specific question, I do all of the above. I always tell people you can fire me at any time, but the way corporations work is you need a PO. So let's do 12 sessions. I like 1.5 hour sessions. I find at 72 minutes, you have completely forgotten about your life and we are in full flow of whatever the things are that you want to work on.
I also do 90 minutes for that reason. We're unique in that, I believe.
And I also believe in spot coaching. I will take a 30-minute. I'll take a 10-minute. I can just we already know each other. I know who you are. You know, I am. What is it? And we'll just, I've gotten a call before and it was, I'm begging you. I was in the dentist's chair. The chairman of the board just said, I have to get on the private jet. I think I might be getting fired. I'm being flown. And I'm begging you get my head on before I get on this jet. Cause I don't, me. And I'm like, okay, hang on a minute. Went out in the parking lot and I would do that for anybody. I would do that for if I saw a little kid running by my restaurant table outside and tripped and fell, what I wouldn't stand up and try to help them or prevent the fall. That's crazy. But I also know needy people are out there. I'm not going to do that. I don't do needy and they know it. You come prepared. You have a job in this too. Coaching isn't one way. This is a relationship and it's a circle of energy that's happening between the two of us. And so I charge all of the above. I do modules where we'll bill for 2 sessions once a month. Cancel me, whatever. I have a cancellation policy. I don't have vacation. I don't have sick leave. And so I only have so many hours and people will always not put themselves first and go, I'll just cancel the coaching because I'm not I'm like, no, I don't do that. I want you to put yourself first. So that's how that works. And Nick, can I just jump, because you brought up a couple of times since we were talking about this circle of energy between me and the coach, how that works for me with my bands?
Please do.
So first of all, there are a zillion people who can sing better than I can. 100%. I was never formally trained. I have a really good ear. Apparently my mother was a singer. My grandmother was a singer. So I know there's some genes in there. I am musically inclined. I can hear a song my band I'm with, they've been together for like 40 years, and they will start playing a song. Oh, I didn't know we did this song, out of nowhere, but I can harmonize this. Oh, but which harmony? Because all 5 of us sing. And so I listen for a minute, and then I pick the harmony somebody isn't doing. And sometimes even hilariously, and Barbara ran, I picked a low note because the lead was out sick that day, and we had a sub, and I'm like, I'll just take the low end so you guys don't have to switch up ear parts. So I'm not a great singer, as I'm telling you. What I am very confident as an entertainer who is totally aware, and I thank my mother for this. I never knew Cruella. I'm saying Cruella lovingly. Came into the room. Who's here? Is this someone who's angry or who's coming in to tell me she just made me a little dessert and come join? So I didn't know. So I'm, those Nadine Burke has a book that you can see like how your childhood has impacted you. And it's an ACEs score. And I think it's out of 7, but I'm a 5 out of 7 of damage. You know what I mean? Like of all these things I've seen, but I'm not going to live there because that's what I used to do. I used to be killing myself, constantly saying how crappy it was, what I had. Those are just digital memories. I can erase those. I can rewrite those. I might need help rewriting those. So I will walk into, let's say we do a lot of weddings in Napa, or we'd be in the, some major car manufacturer is having their annual sales conference for, the salespeople and their spouses or partners. And for 4 days, you'll get to tour San Francisco. And Wednesday night, there's a dinner and a band. So I'll be in front of 1,500 people. I usually do very big gigs or small gigs. Doesn't really matter, weddings. But what I do as an entertainer is I completely tune into the audience. So the circle is between me and the audience of, I know the bride didn't want this to happen, or that, oh boy, here's somebody who's I have literally interrupted the best man who was completely burying himself because he was drunk giving a terrible speech, and went, oh, so I'm so sorry I bumped into you. And I grabbed the mic out and I go, oh my gosh, I just realized the time, so that everybody's safe face. That's like kind of coaching while you're entertaining. I'm a complete idiot on stage. I act like a 7-year-old who no one's looking, and I dance like a fool. And I'm there because I'm giving the audience permission to dance like a fool. That's how I'm connecting, and I'm smiling and I'm high-fiving people and, dancing with dad in the wheelchair. My dad was handicapped. He was in a wheelchair. I have no fear of that. That's the deck you were handed. Great. Or the hand you were handed. So what? Let's dance. So I'm having the circle between me and the audience. I'm having the circle between me and the band members. We don't do set lists. I never know what songs we're going to sing. I have to have 300 songs in my head at every gig. And so do they. And so we're laughing, or I'll look at somebody and I'll wink, or I'll change the lyric somewhere so that it's an inside joke so they know. And then I have the circle in my heart. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? My hourly rate as a coach versus I spend 10 hours on a Saturday going to a gig, making what's top dollar for a musician, which is, unfortunately, along with teachers and other artisans out there, no way on par with what you might get in tech or government or other industries. So what's this doing for me? What am I present? Am I thinking about the next gig? Am I thinking about the next verse? Am I thinking about, why am I singing Aretha right now? I'm clearly not as good as she is. Am I doing something? So I try to have the circle within myself of energy of, why am I here, and try to live on. Don't believe for a minute, though, that I don't start getting into my own head, because I do. And then I try to grab my grounding statements and my tools to get out. That's what I have.
We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips makes travel planning so easy. She says she's a travel agent, but I experience her more like a travel concierge. Kathy has helped my family and friends plan countless trips over the years. She always puts in the extra effort, even calling local shops to find us off the beaten path snowmobile tours, local accommodations, or even to call in advance to make sure our rooms are correct. We love working with Kathy. Call her at 209-518-1625 or email Kathy with a C at shipsandtrips.com. The video 3 Bridges Consulting produced for nickwarnerconsulting.com has increased my sales and the quality of the leads I get. 3 Bridges believes defining and then telling a company's story to the right audience is the most important step in a successful marketing plan. It's not uncommon for a new client to tell me the video on my website was the reason they called me. These guys really know how to use video to help you sell your services. Contact Dennis Williams or Sean Springman by visiting www.threebridgesconsulting.co. Can regularly talented people have their cake and eat it too? Meaning, like I'll read a past quote from you. You're on LinkedIn quoted saying, I have a blast doing the job my parents would never approve of when I was younger. So the question I want to ask you is, can regular people have their cake and eat it too, Teri? You're capable and talented enough to have 2 full-blown passion projects and 1 career. And you were quoted as saying, I mostly go to someone else's party every weekend and act like a crazy person by getting a client's dream party started, then watch it unfold. I have stories, she says. Can regular people that aren't Teri Dahlbeck talented have 2 passion projects?
Well, they already are, and some of them have multiple. But remind you that when I had a child or a baby or a kid at home, that was my passion project. I wanted to go help out with the Halloween party at school. You can have everything you want in your roadmap, in your future. It's just not all at the same time, and it has to be sort of scheduled. And it involves your partner, because if your partner's in here, your kids are, I remember talking to my husband saying, I'm going to be gone. Here I work like a crazy woman Monday through Friday. Now I'm going to be gone all day Saturday. And then I have to sleep in until 11 or 12 because I didn't get home till 3 or 2 or whatever. And, are you okay with that? And I got buy-in from everybody saying, yes, go do it. And then I got okay, that was too much. Cut back a little bit, don't join that second band. So yeah, I think everybody can do what they want. But here's what I want to sort of focus on for a second. Learn from your past, unless you're a little bored in your life. If you're a little bored, go live in your past. You'll find plenty of depression back there. Plan for your future. You've learned from the past. Plan for your future. Unless you're bored and you want to go live in that future, go have some anxiety of all the ways where it's not going to work and people are going to judge you and condescend you or whatever. Live in the now and have a grounding statement of, I wonder what's going to happen, at that gig. And Nick, I'm just like a lot of people that you've probably heard who do any sort of performing, which is, 15 minutes before I go through why am I doing this to myself? I have to sing the national anthem right now. Why did I do that? And I'll start with all that. Stop it. You're having that decision was made years ago or months ago, or when you signed that this gig is here. Let's go back to a grounding statement. So my point is to live in the now, learn from the past, plan for the future, and be super ready for the future to change. Because a lot of us go, I'm going to get my CPA or I'm going to, compete in whatever. And then, you told 7 people and now you're all embarrassed because you're not. And then you go, oh, I'm a loser. And I don't. So I always like to throw on, hey, you know what I want to do? I can't wait for the day I retire, because, like I ever will. Everybody knows I'll be, competing in the elderly home cross-city board competition and then coaching people who missed it or whatever. So it's more of a, I really want to get more into cooking. I love cooking, and just do that more. But I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind and go, oh no, all these foods are so easy to order. Maybe I'll just do that. So I always sort of throw in that little asterisk at the end when I tell others. And for my clients who are not my persona, meaning some who are very analytical and logic, let's say some of my lawyers who are very methodical and thorough, or finance people that tend to have a persona that matches that, I always say, just put the asterisk on there or don't tell them at all. Just say, this is what I'm thinking, but I don't know. I haven't quite worked it out, because we know, Nick, I always say there's 2 brains in every head. There's you, there's great Nick, and then there's the caveman Nick. Nick, you were supposed to be pumping out kids at 15 and be dead by 30. That's who you are. I mean, ask the 3 million ancestors. It's only been the last few, decades that all of this is changing. And your caveman brain doesn't believe that there's food in every corner grocery store. And your caveman brain has made the elk or the bear or the saber-toothed tiger into your manager, or you've created somebody who's in power that could kill you. It is literally the same hardware in your head of processing a manager coming in or a critic or whatever that you're afraid of, as if you saw a bear. It's the same hardware you can't discern. So it's how do you keep yourself in a state of calm, which there's a ton of tools around.
Yeah, this is really good. Like most good ski days, you and I are both big skiers. Like most big ski days, we're sorry when it's over and we need more time. I for sure need more time. We just started, but we don't have it. So I reserve the right to ask you to come back. If you'll have me, I reserve the right to call you as an amazing coach and mentor. But I also want to quickly summarize for our guests some of my takeaways, Teri. I know you're the master coach. I'm a pretty robust in the coaching business as well, but I have 5 pages of notes that I'm going to try to distill down quickly for our listeners. So much good content, and I really appreciate your vulnerability. That's the coolest thing about this. You are a badass at a next level for most of us, but your willingness to be transparent and honest about your frailties is really compelling in this. You mentioned some things that whether you're a top executive or you're on my or Teri's coaching list at 28 years old, you mentioned you've always been a goofball, but then at some point you realize, oh, I have a mortgage, and that's a real thing. So blending the goofball with the mortgage, I think is just, it's adult reality. It really is. And I appreciate that you brought that up. Your attention to work-life balance and not overscheduling our kids, I think is fantastic. You gave parenting advice that's from you. I happen to subscribe to that. You got to try your best, but after that, it's your life. And I think there's a lot for that in adults too. You see a lot of people, and I'm sure you do calendar audits like I do. Like, I'd like you to go back 3 months and let's look through your calendar, because you're pulling your hair out. You're overscheduled and you're over programmed. So I think that's a really good way to think about work-life balance. I was really impressed by you talking about your early signs of being bossy, being good in negotiations, being organized. These are really interesting thoughts. I wish I had more time to poke at what makes you such a great negotiator. The whole interview, I was like, I really want to hear more about that. Give us a little tiny bit. We only have a couple minutes left, but give us the really quick header on what makes you such a great negotiator.
Knowing how to bend my style, first of all. So I'm going to say the same thing I would say to anybody, but I would say it maybe in a different way, using different words. Maybe one way would be more collaborative in tone, like, let's do this and we can talk about that, versus if I believe the other person would find that as me being weak, then I'll go into that, listen, or look, or you need to. And so it's bending my style, but that's still the same thing. I'm going to ask for, I'm looking to buy 10 apples here for 10 cents under what other people pay, if that's my goal or whatever.
That's awesome. I love this thought of grounding statements. It's really good. I like that word. It crystallizes like a reset, and I want to hear and learn more about that. So I appreciate you introducing that phraseology.
It truly was an honor. I'm glad that you asked me. I find you to be super easy to talk to and collaborative and caring. And the fact that you're doing this podcast is wonderful. And I know people appreciate you for taking the time to do it. And yeah, Simplified Coach appreciates it just because, our team, if we can help anybody, yeah, sure. We've got 100 people around the world. But more importantly, I just like having a chat with you, Nick. You're just a fun guy. And I will say that in the ski analogy that you gave, I would like to keep skiing, but my body now lately is saying, sorry, you would, back to the caveman brain and me, back to me and my body, so, things change, and we have to learn to love the fact that, I can't, do crazy tricks or go off the runs that I used to do. And I'm not going to be a crabby person going and taking everybody else's day down and going, well, I used to be able to do that. It just sucks that I've had 9 knee surgeries because I've thrown myself off everything that I could. I'm not going to ruin someone else's day. Hey, guess what? I'm in a new chapter of my life, and I'm going to hit the intermediate groomed runs and I'll see you at the lodge.
Learn from the past, plan for the future, be ready for the future to change. I put it in that.
Perfect.
Teri Dahlbeck, you did a fantastic job on this interview. We all learned a ton from you. So honored you joined us. To our listeners, please join us next month for another episode of Together at the Top.
Thank you so much, Nick. It truly was fun. And that's the point of being on this journey, right? Are we enjoying ourselves? Yes. You're a delight. Cheers.
Thank you so much for your time. Together at the Top thrives off listeners like you. To stay connected, follow our socials in the show notes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We will be releasing our show on the last Tuesday of every month. See you next time. At Nick Warner Consulting, we exist to coach and consult motivated professionals. I meet with you on Zoom in focused 90-minute sessions, working toward your goals and developing next-level business skill sets. My job is to add value to your organization and your career. To learn more, visit www.nickwarnerconsulting.com or call me directly at 916-765-3576.